All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to start to share our presentation here. Can you all see that? Great. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you with us today. We have a webinar for you featuring a few of our members and leaders of the Education Committee of the Hidden Helpers Coalition. To start off today, I'd like to ground us. See if I can get the presentation working. I'd like to ground us in exactly who we're talking about, in who are our hidden helpers and what do we say when we mean hidden helpers. And so the updated definition of hidden helpers that this coalition has come to is that hidden helpers are the children, youth, and young adults up to age 18 who are currently impacted by or actively involved in hands-on care of a wounded, ill, or injured veteran. And we're excited to say that additional information on the caregiving population overall is expected in 2024 through the RAND 2.0 study. And the first RAND study, as many of you know, was commissioned by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation in 2012 to really outline who the military caregiving population is overall, including adults and children. And so now I'll stop talking and turn it over to people who know much more about this population than I. That's Tara Gleason from MSEC, Steve Malik from Mathematica, Dr. Jerry Maples from Blue Star Families, who's also an Elizabeth Dole Foundation Fellow alumna, and Jenna Pryor from Psych Armor. And they're going to take you through some of the committee's work, some of the things that are important to know about hidden helpers in the classroom, and then we'll break out into some breakout sessions to discuss some actionable steps that we all can take to support this important community. So next, I'll turn it over to Steve to talk a little bit about the important research that he and his team have done on the hidden helper population. Steve?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about some of what research said and some of what our research found along the way. So I think the headline here is, hidden helpers are experiencing challenges in school settings. And we can talk a bit about why that is. But, I think one of the big things we learned from our research was that we had an estimate of approximately 2.3 million hidden helpers nationally, which means that hidden helpers are in every community across this country. They might be within walking distance of your own home. So what does the literature say about hidden helpers and their needs? Well, when we first started our research, resulting in the 2021 report, we started off with a literature review just to understand what does the research say. And we found a few trends in that literature. First, that hidden helpers experience isolation and have fewer opportunities to interact with their peers and develop friendships. The research noted that many hidden helpers felt stigmatized and had difficulties expressing emotion and learning in schools. And then one of the contributory factors faced by hidden helpers was just having more health problems, such as stress, burnout, and fatigue. And so when we set out to do our research, we conducted a bunch of focus groups and interviews and examined nationally representative data, and we found very similar trends. In fact, we found that hidden helpers were more likely than children in non-caregiving homes to have many worries or be unhappy or stressed. We also found that students, that hidden helpers experience social isolation due in part to their different lived experiences. You can imagine if a child is going to school and then having to go home and can't participate in after school activities because they need to help provide care for their loved one, that's going to play out for the students. But we also found that many hidden helpers and their families often avoided disclosing their status as growing up in a military or veteran caregiving home. And sometimes this was out of a sense of, we just don't talk about our family business with outsiders. And sometimes it was out of a fear that they would be treated differently or poorly as a result. And one resounding theme we noticed across the board is that the school system itself and its policies was not designed to support hidden helpers in their needs, right? So if you have a loved one who needs to receive care and that doctor's appointment is taking place kind of during the later part of the school day, which may mean that you're not able to pick up your kid, your hidden helper at school fast enough, they could be penalized for that, or they, if they were truants or late to school because they were participating in providing care in the morning, that could sometimes play out in a negative way for our hidden helpers. So this is kind of what the literature has to say about that, and happy to answer questions if anyone has questions that I can discuss later. But I'll pass it back to you, Madison.
Great. Dr. Maples, would you like to share a little bit about your and your family's lived experience?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for the honor to share Shane and Emily's story with all of you today. It's an honor to be part of this coalition and represent Blue Star families as well. My husband Robert was served in the U.S. Army and the Ohio Army National Guard. Our children, Shane and Emily, were blessed to have grown up under the umbrella of an extended National Guard family. In fact, Emily took her first steps on the National Guard drill floor. In 2003, their father was activated for Operation Iraqi Freedom. And at deployment, Shane was 9 and in the 3rd grade, and Emily was 5 and in kindergarten. Shane was noted to be within the top 3rd in the state in reading. Their father's deployment to Iraq endured 4 extensions and lasted 18 months before returning home in September of 2004, just 6 days shy of Emily's 7th birthday. Shane at that time was starting 5th grade and Emily 1st grade. And it's important to point out that due to stressors during the deployment, Emily went back through kindergarten, so that delayed her starting the 1st grade. Shortly after their father's return home, Shane began struggling academically, and Emily, her 1st grade teacher, started to share that she was struggling with reading. At the time, I thought the claim of Emily's reading was incorrect because she was reading fine for me at home. It wasn't until recently that I understood that her teacher's claim had claimed that Emily was lying about her father's service, and she made the claim which made Emily really kind of feel uncomfortable, and she held that all the way up until recently with her. And I realize now that led to a lack of connection with her teacher, which really kind of explains that claim of struggling to read. Over the year after their father returned home, we moved, and Shane and Emily started a new school district. At that time, Shane was entering the 6th grade and Emily was entering the 2nd grade. It was at that time that Shane really started to become negatively impacted in his academic performance. Over this time, between Shane's 6th and 8th grade year and Emily's early elementary school years, their father, we almost lost him 3 times due to his invisible wounds, and the VA at that point deemed him unemployable. In 2010, we almost lost him a 4th time. At that time, Shane was just starting his junior year of high school. At the start of his junior year, he only had earned 2.5 credits towards graduation. We knew that he needed support, so I attempted to explain his challenges to his guidance counselors, his teachers, and really tried to explain that the things that he was experiencing were due to his father's invisible injuries and ongoing health problems. The response I got was, his father's home, so Shane should be fine. At some point, we were able to connect with a school psychologist, and she took upon herself to go and interview Shane's teachers. We received comments from their reports, such as, "I've given up on Shane." One teacher even went as far as responding to the question to list Shane's strengths as saying, "I don't believe Shane has any." When the opportunity was presented to Shane to join a special program that would allow him to catch up, stay in school, graduate with his friends, and repeatedly and really have that high school experience, he was repeatedly passed over by in some cases, students who had just moved into the district. So we consulted a lawyer, paid him over $1,000, which at a time we were really struggling financially with no success. At 16 years old, we decided it was time to pull Shane out of school and homeschool him. We purchased every GED book that there was probably ever made, paid a tutor over $120 a week, and in April of 2013, just shy of 1 year of Shane's scheduled graduation date, he sat for those exams and passed them all in one try. But despite the excitement and the overwhelming abundance of joy that we had for him, Shane was left with a void that's still visible today. He missed the opportunity to graduate with his lifelong friends. He missed prom. He missed homecoming. All those school functions that kids his age should have the opportunity to experience. But he also lost trust in a system that was meant to support him, and he lost confidence in himself. Now I want to take you back to Emily, who, and around the same time we pulled Shane out of school, we put her in a private school. She was in 7th grade at the time. And although her academic journey looks a lot different, her struggles came from tardiness and early departures, all of a result of trying to balance care at home and hospitalizations and medical treatments aligned with her dad. Socially, it was tough for her as well. I call her my social butterfly. And often we had to tell her no when she wanted friends to sleep over, or tell her no when that she couldn't attend an after party outings, after sporting events or other school functions. But I believe the biggest impact that she felt was the need to defend her father for his inability to work and offer some sort of explanation. An example of this comes when she received comments from her classmates saying that their parents' taxes paid for everything she had. Shane and Emily have long-term impacts from their journey, from their hidden helper journey. Most of them for Shane are a lack of trust and confidence in himself, and he really does fear for his future. And although it's uncertain the connection, Shane and Emily both suffer from a health condition called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which can be caused by experiences such as stress or trauma. And throughout Emily's childhood years, she suffered from extreme migraines, where Shane had these unexplained high heart rates. And in 2018, Shane became ill and was bedridden for 2 long months. Emily, 2 months later, also fell ill. And both of them are working through those things, but Shane sees an ongoing counselor to really kind of help secure his future and work on those things that he's experiencing. But there are some positives as well. Now that they're at the age of 29 and 26, Shane obtained his master's degree in history. Emily's currently working on her doctorate degree in industrial organizational psychology. And both of them have a pay it forward attitude and a passion for helping others. In fact, Shane started an initiative to support his fellow Popsies, who often find themselves lost in a world that is unknown or filled with uncertainty. But he also wants to help find an opportunity to support students so he can help prevent them from having an experience like he had along his journey, as well as his little sister. So I asked them the answer to what would have made a difference, what support was needed. And I want to take a moment to share Shane's answer with all of you. The school needed to be receptive to my voice and take steps to trust in me and utilize the tools that were available. Although these tools were present, support was deficient. There was a notable absence of efforts to comprehend the experiences of military and veteran families, and actions should be taken to comprehend our distinct challenges. It's essential for them to make an effort to understand not only hidden helpers, but also military children in general. And unfortunately, I was never given the opportunity because the school didn't dedicate the time to invest in me. Thank you so much for allowing me to share Shane and Emily's journey with all of you today. And I hope it puts a little bit more perspective on what our hidden helpers are enduring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maples. And thanks to Shane and Emily too. All right. Next, I'd like to introduce Tara Gleason to speak a little bit about the education subcommittee and the theory of change that drives this work forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maples, for sharing that student voice that is just so powerful and a driving force for the work that we do. So very much appreciate you sharing that. So my name is Tara Gleason. I am the Director of Programs at the Military Child Education Coalition, and MSEC has been privileged over the last 2 years or so to lead the Education Committee. My predecessor was our CEO, Dr. Becky Porter, and I stepped into this position last spring. Previous to being in this position, I was leading the Professional Development Subcommittee, and that's much of what we're going to talk about today. So before you'll see some of our goals within the Education Subcommittee. We want to support hidden helpers' academic, social, and emotional needs. We know that education doesn't stand on its own, that in order for students to have academic success, we also need to address those social and emotional issues and challenges, and also those strengths in order for them to move forward in their academic careers. And particularly, it started with the education, the professional development subcommittee that now has kind of been broadened. We want to increase the education professionals' knowledge about hidden helpers and also provide resources and supports in order for them to be successful. And that's some of the work that you're going to be hearing from us today. Particularly, we're going to talk about the showcasing and promoting high quality professional development. So over the course of the last year and a half, the committee has contributed to several different professional development projects. One, it started at the MSEC Global Training Summit with an in-person and a virtual event. We also supported MSEC's work with professional roundtables over the course of last year, which we were continually refining content. And in a moment, PsychArmor, Jenna Pryor from PsychArmor is going to talk about what next steps are going to look like. But I wanted to paint a picture of a little bit of some of the work we did within the first year. And then that's it's leading to some of the next work that I'm going to talk to. We know, and we heard from Dr. Maples directly in her experience, that educators need to know more information about military culture, and particularly about the needs of hidden helpers in order to address their unique needs. And that's why our committee exists and why we've found this work so important. I do want to say thank you to the committee members. We have contributions across several organizations, some of which you're going to hear from today or have already heard from, and many, many others. And so it's been really valuable work for all of us. And we're excited that we're at this point to talk about some of what's to come. So if we want to go ahead, I'm going to focus just on the professional development today. As far as our theory of change, we do have other priorities that you'll see on here regarding partnerships and incorporating that voice. I touched on that a little bit with what Dr. Maples shared, and also some messaging through parent scripts and some resources specific to parents. And that has grown over time as the committee has gone on this far. Can we go ahead to the next one on the needs assessment? First, we were able to conduct, the Education Committee conducted a needs assessment this fall. And so I want to thank the Impact Committee. We had drafted those questions and refined them from October to this summer, and we wanted their input. So I just want to thank the Impact Committee and those who contributed from IMFAN to look over those questions and provide support and able to make sure that we were able to capture the information we need to take this work forward. Next slide. So we had 73 respondents. If any of you contributed to that needs assessment, I want to thank you. We asked a multitude of questions to try to to collect some information that we later shared with PsychArmor in recent meetings for these next step in helping youth serving professionals. We know that there is a need, that only 59% of respondents have had any professional development on military culture in general. And also to see that of the number of respondents that answered the survey, 63% of those respondents said that they had 26% or more of the student body is military connected. Next slide. So one of the approaches we've taken, so in the first year, we provided professional development through a couple of different delivery models. One was an in-person. We also tried virtual. We tried professional learning community, where we were able to provide input and feedback. Well, in our next step, we were trying to gauge how our participants felt about an online professional development, like a self-paced online professional development model. And again, Jen is going to respond to that here in a moment. 84% of those respondents felt comfortable with self-paced online professional development. And then 83% of respondents felt they had some level of knowledge of the needs of military youth serving caregiving roles. Very few respondents had no knowledge at all. So that's a good sign that very few said, I know nothing about of the needs of military connected youth who are serving in caregiver roles. You'll see 42% only have a little bit of knowledge. So, and then 28 said some knowledge. And so this middle ground is kind of showing us that, yes, there's still a need, that we still have respondents out there who say that they want to know more about this particular population. I will say that we had a vast array of respondents. We were seeking information from a group of youth serving professionals. We had a lot of respondents from the education space, from education professionals, and that's where we're moving this work forward. We are looking at online interactive learning modules, and that ranked in the top 3 when respondents ranked how they preferred to do professional learning activities. Some of the others are things like webinars, self-paced videos, and self-paced videos. That the fact that we had the online interactive learning modules and self-paced videos in the top 3 show that we're moving in the right direction in the next step. So that's pretty much my highlights for some of the data. Please let me know if you want more detailed information about that needs assessment. We have a couple pages worth of raw data that I'm happy to share with those who might have interest in any portions of that information that I haven't already shared about. We did ask amongst the entire early childhood into post-secondary. So we had respondents from all of those age groups, every type of school type. We did not survey homeschool families, only traditional, private, charter, magnet, and DoDEA. So the one area we didn't target with professional development is homeschool families, but across all the other ones, we were able to capture some information. So please do reach out if we have additional information, and I'll pass it back to you.
Great. I'm going to call on Jenna to share some information about the work that PsychArmor and MSEC have been doing together.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me today. And thanks everyone for being here. My name is Jenna Pryor. I'm the Vice President of Implementation, Learning, and Evaluation at PsychArmor. And PsychArmor, if you are not familiar with our organization, is the national training expert on military culture and education for really anyone that's looking to learn more about our military and veteran community. In partnership with the Military Child Education Coalition and with support from the Wounded Warrior Project, we are creating a series of modules focused on educating educators about the strengths, needs, challenges, and experiences of hidden helpers, specifically in the classroom. And we heard from my other wonderful panelists today that there is definitely a need for these resources, not just specific to just military culture, but really focused in on the needs of caregiving youth connected to military families. This series of modules will address who hidden helpers are. Like I said, what are their strengths? What are their challenges that they experience? How do they identify in the classroom? Do they identify in a caregiving role or a military family at all in the classroom? And how can we better identify who these students are so that we can provide the right supports for them when they need them? Which gets to that last bullet, is how can we support hidden helpers? And this will be focused mainly on educators, but also school professionals and those that support hidden helpers in other ways beyond the traditional teacher role. So this is launched this year, and we are expecting to have this ready for everyone to start using about the middle of next year, sometime around June. Like Tara said, these will be online, self-paced, interactive modules. So they'll be available 24/7 on demand whenever educators and school support professionals are ready to start using them when they have time to fit in their schedules. We know that professional development is not an easy thing for anyone to fit in to their full-time job, but this is something that we feel is very important for educators to know, specifically in the military-heavy communities, and just to be able to support hidden helpers. And many of these concepts that we'll address in this course can be applied to other communities as well. People that are not military connected, but maybe students that are in caregiving roles outside of the military community. There's a lot of intersectionality that happens within this community, and we want to also remind educators and school support professionals that this doesn't just apply to military caregiving youth. Anything that they learn in these courses will likely help other students as well. Next slide. So for the time being, while we're still working on that course, on that series of modules with MSEC, I did want to point everyone towards our resources that are available at no cost on our website. If you scan that QR code or go to the link, you'll be directed to a bundle of courses, including our 15 Things Military and Veterans Kids Want You to Know, as well as other courses focused on supporting youth, not only in caregiving roles, but just in military families in general as well. And these address topics like the experiences of military kids, supporting youth in those caregiving roles. We do have a few courses on supporting youth in the classroom. Again, these are mostly military and veteran kids, not caregiving youth connected to military families. And then providing respite in the home for parents as well. We have a great resource or a great portfolio for parents, educators, healthcare providers. We also have some suicide prevention and mental health in the home focused courses. So those invisible wounds of war. We have a great series called Invisible Wounds at Home for anyone to log on and access to learn more while we're waiting for this resource to be finalized. But like I said, these resources are all free on our website. So please go create an account, start accessing resources, send this link on to anyone in your community that may need it. We have these resources available and just want people to use them. So please reach out if anyone has any questions about suggestions for new resources as well, or questions about our existing resources. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Jenna. At this stage, we are going to have folks break out into breakout sessions. So I am going to create those breakout groups, and we're going to do our best to have everybody in a breakout room with one of these amazing panelists here today. So just going to take me a minute to assign folks to a couple of rooms. While we are doing that, can I ask perhaps if anyone has any questions for these panelists? All right. Just bear with me for a moment and we will be ready to go. Okay, I believe everyone should have a breakout room. I'm going to open those rooms in just a second. So in your breakout session, if you could please, with your group, consider the question here on your screen. What are some actionable strategies in education that could best support hidden helpers elevating their well-being? We're going to take about 10 minutes as groups to think through this question. And you will have someone, one of these panelists in your group to think about ideas with, to bounce off ideas with, also understand a little bit more about the work of this committee. And then we'll come back as a larger group and share out about what we thought about. So I'll open the rooms, we'll take 10 minutes, and then we'll come back together.
Back in the main session.
Addison, how much time is left in the breakouts? I hit the wrong button. Can you put me back in? Never mind.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. It sounded like most people were having some great discussions. We lost a few people when we transitioned to breakouts. I think, some people couldn't handle the amazing discussions that were being had, but for those who stayed along, I think it was fruitful. So perhaps we could hear some share outs from each of the turned into 3 groups that we had. What are some actionable strategies in education that could best support hidden helpers, elevating their well-being? Who would like to start? I'm gonna stop share so that we can all see each other. Great.
So in our group, we talked about, the resources and how do we work harder to connect our community so that they're talking about it and taking away the stigma, and also how do we connect our teachers to knowing more about what that looks like for staff, and we talked about some different shit and what it looks like in different areas of our country too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to take a moment and give a shout out to Leah. Thank you for being here.
She's
so
great.
awesome
Thanks for bringing her here, Dr. Maples.
My pleasure. My pleasure. She's amazing.
Well, I did share with the team that's, looking at our community and how we are connected to resources with Dr. Maples, then being able to connect her with our students who are going into the military, whether enlisted or academy based. She is there at that ceremony we have in the spring to be able to right away connect with families, because we're halfway between Cincinnati and Dayton, and those are kind of 2 of the more military connected communities. And so having the resources of what it looks like for our families, for our children, that she's brought a lot to our district, but also helping us to look at it differently too.
Thanks, Leah. And as you bring that up, so that we can have some time to look at it, I'm going to share a link to a Dropbox that this subcommittee created that has a starting sort of list of some resources for everybody. But I think it is the hope of this group that you can not only use it, but contribute resources as you find them as well. So please feel free to use this, take resources, contribute to the link as you need. What else did other groups talk about?
Yeah, I can share next. One thing specifically that our group talked about was the need for data on more local or regional levels about hidden helpers in the classroom, so that when we're developing programs and looking for funding to develop programs, we have accurate data about the number of kids this may impact. So that was one thing. And then really focusing on proactive supports in the classroom and in school systems to provide programming, whether that's after school programs or during school programs, to recognize the hidden helpers in the classroom, but really just the proactive nature of support systems, and not waiting till they're struggling to recognize what they need, but really recognizing them up front.
Yeah.
Another thing we talked about, was peer support, and how connecting hidden helpers with other hidden helpers, or just military kids in general, just provides that sense of community, and is a support when they see another hidden helper talking about their experiences, and that strengthens their the likelihood that they may self-identify as a hidden helper as well, which we know is a challenge. And for kids that may be quieter and not as willing to share their experience, that may give them the confidence to talk about it, at least with their peers.
Yeah. I know there are a lot of groups on the phone or on the line here who think about this a lot and who do peer support for military kids very well, but there's always a need for more, right? So thinking about innovative ways to provide this support is so important. What else did other groups talk about?
So our group touched interestingly on data points, some of the other things that the other groups have. So I'll just focus on some of the things that haven't already been mentioned. One of the areas is individualized supports, recognizing what supports are available for students and or school options, and making sure to individualize and really listen in each individual situation and connecting them to the right support for the right circumstance. So obviously our conversation went a couple different ways on what those supports might be. One of them may be homeschooling. One of them may be some version of an alternate school option or options within the public school setting, and just being flexible to the needs of that individual circumstance. We ended like kind of quickly on universal screeners. One of the challenges is that identifying students sometimes don't want others to know that they're there, or their families may not want them to know that they are there. So in order for schools or educators to best support students, I think having that universal screener or ways to identify, either self-identify or having some other person be able to identify them being there is a really critical step in order to provide those supports that we were just talking about. And then Hannah was talking about journey maps and got pulled back to the main room, so I can't expand on it. So Hannah, if you don't mind, like we were on the edge of our seat and we were like, oh, she already went back. So can you expand on the journey map, since we didn't get the moment to do that before you headed to the main room?
Yes, you can tell I've been using Google Meets and not Zoom recently and forget how it works. We have the caregiver journey map that the Dole Foundation created, along with the milestone mapping that they're doing as well. And on the side of parents who are caregivers, being able to provide them that educational piece too, that if you are a parent and a caregiver, a natural part of your journey is going to be those schooling decisions. And we've heard time and time again, especially from the Dole Fellows, that they had to pull their kids out of school to be able to accommodate their needs for being at appointments and that kind of thing, like we were talking about with homeschoolers. And so acknowledging that on the family side and calling attention to that on the family side, so they can proactively think about, if they have time, of course, proactively think about how this caregiving journey is also impacting the child's education.
And I just want to point out, just, from here in the Dayton and Southwest Ohio Blue Star Family Chapter, we obviously work a lot with several different schools in our Purple Star Hidden Helper Club program. And one of the things that I often hear from teachers is that our veterans and their parents, they don't want to share with their kids what their challenges are. Oftentimes they don't want them to know about that. So they don't even really realize that they are a hidden helper, even though they are going through these things. So, I feel like sometimes the kids don't even realize that they are in this role. So I feel like that's important to point out as well. So, sometimes we don't even really tell them that they're a hidden helper. We just engage them in the activity, and help them along without them even really knowing. So, but I think it still really does have a really great benefit for them. And we've also really kind of started to involve our civilian neighbors. And so for those civilian neighbors are those kiddos who want to support their fellow classmates. And I feel like that is just so beneficial. because oftentimes they have commonalities and they don't even realize. So, so those are just some different things that we find are being helpful here.
Thanks, Dr. Maples. That's really helpful. Definitely something that you all probably see too, but from the Dole Foundation perspective, with the overall caregiver population, we often see that people don't realize that they're caregivers, and they see themselves as good family members or good friends, or doing what's right. And I think what you said, it especially rings true for the hidden helper population. So important to provide that support, whether folks realize kind of the role that they're in or not. Any other folks want to talk about the discussion that you had, either in the groups that you're in, or anything else that might have come up over the last hour or so? Kara, thank you for putting that story in the chat. That was incredibly powerful, and so just so well written, that you shared, that was shared by our military kids over the weekend.
Absolutely. It's very, very relevant to this conversation.
Yeah.
I'll add, thinking about, I briefly glancing at the story, but a group of our students were invited to sing in Washington, D.C. over the weekend. And the tour guide went through, and one of the children has a family member buried at Arlington. So when they did their tour at Arlington, then the tour guide had it mapped out where they went. And ultimately, they had a small ceremony at the gravesite, and this child obviously was there, high schooler, but then all of his high school peers then also recognized the veteran that was buried there. And just, again, this was not necessarily a military connected organization as much as this was the choir group. So a broader peer group in that high school, and their experience, not only in supporting their classmate, but in recognizing the importance of what some of those memorials really mean to those who are connected to them at an early age. And so, thinking about how do we build resilience in our students, it's also how do we reach our students that are not necessarily connected, but in ways that show that they are supporting those that are.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. I'll just recognize that we're getting close to the hour here, and just really appreciate all of our wonderful panelists, their leadership on this committee, and many of you for your work on the larger Hidden Helpers Coalition is extremely meaningful to all of us, and I know to many Hidden Helper families out there. So thank you. I will say, if you're interested in joining specifically the education subcommittee, please reach out either to myself or to Leah, the program, one of our programs coordinators, and I'll send some information out to all of you who attended about joining the committee. If you're not a member of the Hidden Helpers Coalition, we would love to have you as well. And so I'll send some information out about that too. And then the other thing that we'll follow up on is that resources folder that was shared out, that has some great resources already from many of the panelists, as well as some others from the committee. So please feel free to use those resources, or add some if there are any that came to mind. But thank you all again for attending. Thank you to our wonderful panelists, Tara, Steve, Jenna, Dr. Maples. It's been a really wonderful hour, and we will see you all next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Madison.
Thank you.